Everyone get out!
Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to Q&D number 5. There's been a little gap since the last one, but I'm only doing these kind of like once every when I feel like it, so you know. It's not like I'm trying to keep with a particular schedule with these things. So I'm going to do this one slightly differently in terms of editing. Normally I just try and sit and do it through as one take, and I've had times before when, yeah, just for purely keeping, you know, the video bit kind of continuous. But you'll notice some edits. I'm gonna cut between questions maybe. It will be a bit more edited this time round in terms of the face cam stuff and my answers. So if you notice jumps, that's why. I'm also gonna do the usual thing. I'm just going to kind of answer questions in order. Most of them I'll just be answering off the top of my head. There's one or two where I had to sit down and think about the answer, and you'll see those. So yeah, there's some good ones this time round as well. This is all from the video, the last video rather. And I'm going to say in advance, as with always, if you want questions answered for the next video, leave them in the comments boxes below. The comment box, you know what I mean. So, yeah, let's start off with Urban Tarzan Duh, who asks, what's my favourite science fiction quote? Now, this is one I had to look up. This is actually from Doctor Who, and it's Tom Baker. I can't remember what the episode was, but he has this brilliant quote about the trouble with... I'm not going to do the voice because I can't do a Tom Baker voice, but it says, the trouble with computers... wow. I can speak, you guys. I'm off to a good start. The trouble with computers, of course, is that they're very sophisticated idiots. They do exactly what you tell them to do at amazing speed. Yeah, it's one of my favourite 4 Doctor quotes, but it sounds better when Tom Baker says it. There's other good science fiction quotes, but you know, that's the one that sticks with me. Mogaiwell says, this is the most difficult question so far. How would I react to a mouse KV4 hybrid owned by Serb given to you, but in exchange for your soul being sold to Wargaming? Why is this even a question? I mean, come on, we all know what the answer's going to be. I mean, I don't need a soul, you know, that's just... I want that tank! Who cares about having a soul when you can have that tank? I mean... Why did you even think that was going to be a difficult question? I don't know. You people are strange. Hugo Ooms asks, can I go faster than the speed of light in vacuum? Yes, but not when anybody's watching. It's like... Oh God, what was that guy from that film? The one with the superpowers. The film with the superpowers, and there was somebody with a transparent bowling ball, and I can't even remember the heck what that film was called. But there was a guy that could only turn invisible, but when nobody wasn't, you know, when not when anybody was looking at him, he could only do it when no one was watching. And that's exactly the same with me. I can go at the speed of light, but only when you're watching. That's true. It's totally true. Mr. Superboob asks. You know, I'm answering this question so just so I can say Mr. Superboob. Can I say cheese in the fashion of Wallace from Wallace and Gromit? Cheese, Gromit? Not quite the right accent, but you know, close enough. I do like Wallace and Gromit though. Who doesn't like Wallace and Gromit? POS Larder. You know, my uncle actually for many years owned a Larder. Absolutely swore by that car. The only reason he doesn't still use it is because basically it broke after many years service, and he just couldn't get the spares to replace it because it's just not a common enough car. So yeah, I don't have the same opinion of Larders as most people, but mostly because my uncle thinks so highly of his. Anyway, he says, have I ever glued my ponytail to my upper lip and pretended it was a sweet moustache? Yep. Don't need glue, you guys. You know, see, the thing is, if I don't use glue, I've got the option of doing it, or just having it as normal. It's like, you know, I can just, as the situation requires, so I feel this way is more flexible. Here's an interesting one from Welsh Boris, who says, what would I do if I had a better internet connection, which I hopefully will someday. Would I be streaming alongside Circon and the guys, or would I put up more YouTube videos? I don't know, I probably wouldn't, if I had good enough internet for that, I don't think I'd do any kind of dual streaming thing, although it might be kind of interesting, it just depends on maybe an experimental thing. I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't go and do my own streams at the same time that Circon or Fosh were. But I certainly would. Not necessarily massively more videos, a few more videos, but better quality videos, 1080p videos, maybe even longer videos, you know, more viewer spotlight, double features, that kind of thing. So that would be nice if I could do kind of longer, better quality videos. And I don't know, maybe a bit of streaming as well, just as an experimental thing. But I don't think I seeing what Circon does and playing with Circon when he streams, I don't think I could do that, and probably for the same reasons that Jingles has said, that it's a different thing to sit down for several hours at a stretch and have the focus be on you and be trying to consistently not be derpy, which is a bit of a problem for me, as we all know. So yeah, I would utilize it for better YouTube content and maybe experiment a bit with streaming, like maybe a bit of, oh, I feel like playing for a while, so I'll go and stream for a bit. But the thing with me is, if I'm just playing on my own and if I'm not platooning with people, then it doesn't take that much these days. I've kind of deliberately lowered my threshold, where if I have about 4, maybe 5 really stinky battles in a row, I'll just go and take a break. And if you're streaming, that's kind of not an option, because that's the point where everyone just goes on to another stream kind of thing. So yeah, I don't think I'm really temperamentally suited to streaming. I think YouTube's more my thing, so that's what it would be used for. Mitter Binnis Dirty, I don't even know, asks, why is my nose always stuffed up? I think this, someone else asked this further up in the comment thread as well, or the YouTube comment section for the last video. I think it's just the way I sound, you guys. My mic might have something to do with it. This is only a fairly cheap headset. I do kind of plan to upgrade at some point, but I'd also like better video editing software. I'd actually like a proper mic, even if it's only a decent USB mic, you know, pop filter and that whole thing. And a better webcam would be nice, but these are all things that require kind of like, you know, I'm not going to be able to buy them all at once. I'm just going to have to prioritise. And I think maybe a microphone will be the first thing, but I suspect I'll still sound more or less like I do, because this is just kind of how I sound. So, yeah. At least I don't sound, well, I was going to say, at least I don't sound, you know, super nasal like, oh, that guy's name, no, pass, but you know, famous comedian guy. Very nasal voice, was in the Carry On films. Kenneth Williams, there we go, it came to me. Yeah, but on the other hand, if I sounded like that, that might be an asset, who knows, because he had a very, very distinctive voice. Plus, he was also very funny. John Triplet asks, might be a controversial question, at least for any Scottish viewers. Do I support Scottish independence? I have to say, for my own part, and I've answered this before on stream and whatever, so it's not like it's a secret, but no. Is the quick answer, and there are various reasons for that. But it's just, I think I'm one of those group of people that, if there'd been some kind of really compelling argument for it, but I haven't seen one yet. And frankly, the campaign on both sides has been pretty risible. I mean, I've not been impressed by either the yes or the no campaigns, and I just. I was always going to come to this on being on the side of wanting mostly to stay in the UK, but if there was some kind of compelling argument for Scottish independence, then yeah, I could maybe be convinced, but nothing's even come close. I also saw there was a Scott Manley video where it was a highlight from a live stream or something, where he'd been playing with his brother who'd come over for a visit basically, and he got asked about that, and I really liked his brother's answer, which was that we should be taking away borders, not adding more borders, and I quite liked that. Of course, that's not my reason for not voting yes, but I think it's still a fairly, you know, a nice reason, or a fairly well enunciated reason. Isengratz asks, and there's someone else that asks a similar question as well. If I wanted to visit Scotland, where would you recommend I go? Now, Gollum actually posted underneath this about Edinburgh, and Edinburgh's not a bad jumping off point, but the thing about Edinburgh is it's incredibly touristy. I mean, it's really drowning in all the little touristy shops. And there's some very nice stuff in Edinburgh as well, don't get me wrong. There's some very picturesque bits of Edinburgh. But yeah, it is the only place I've ever been that has been worse for tourists has been like Amsterdam in the height of summer. Because I've not been to many like capital city, you know, like big touristy attractiony placey is. Oh, that Englishy. Oh my god. I swear I haven't been drinking whiskey or beer or anything, you guys. I swear this is just me. My throat's feeling a bit weird today as well. That's kind of off-putting. I don't know why, but yeah, there's plenty of other nice bits. The thing about Scotland is it's not particularly big, but getting to the more rural bits, getting further north is, especially getting to the west coast as well, the trains will only get you so far and the buses aren't that frequent, so unless you've got your own transport, planning ahead with your journeys is particularly important. But there's some really nice bits that you can get to. I mean, the area around Inverness is pretty nice. Fort William, you can, if you're into kind of outdoorsy stuff. I'm trying to think. The east, there's some nice places to visit on the east coast as well, even though obviously west coast is the best coast. A lot of people come to the Hebrides for the scenery. I think probably more than go to like Wester Ross and places like that, because those are quite sparsely populated. But you know, Lewis and Harris, further down, there's also the Inner Hebrides where they have places like Jura and Islay, and there's a lot of people that go on, you know, like distillery holidays and just go around all the whiskey distilleries in the Inner Hebrides and that kind of thing. But, you know, there's whiskey distilleries everywhere. There's even now a whiskey distillery on the island, which is only about a year and a half old. I don't think they've even started selling whiskey yet. It's going to be, I don't know. But, yeah, there's a lot to do in Scotland. And also, you know, having mentioned Edinburgh, don't discount Glasgow. Glasgow's got a lot of good stuff as well. There are some pretty decent museums, there's some pretty decent architecture. I'm sure there's, you know, some pretty decent like pubs and bars and whatever if you're into that kind of thing. There's such a shortage of pubs in Scotland, you guys. I mean, it's so hard to find a pub in Scotland, you just wouldn't believe. But yeah, I'm probably not the best person to ask this question, but I've been to some places that I've enjoyed, and you know, I probably know Glasgow better than I know Edinburgh because my stepbrother's actually in Glasgow, so I've maybe got a slight bias there. But there's just good stuff all over. If you want the really picturesque scenery, you've got to get out of the Central Belt. But if you want all the kind of museums and kind of cultural stuff, a lot of that is in the Central Belt. So it's just, I don't know. There's stuff everywhere, really. Domini471 asks, what do I think is the biggest current flaw with World of Tanks? This is an interesting question. Now, I did kind of think about this, the answer a bit. I'm sure everyone's expecting me to go, artillery. But actually, no, I'm going to say it is balancing stroke matchmaking. There are a lot of tanks in the game, especially kind of sub-tier 5, that really get shafted by even the more limited current matchmaking that's in place, that I think coming up through the lower tiers these days, unless you're deliberately going for stronger tanks, if you're just kind of new to the game, it's very, very easy to end up, especially once you get to tier 3 and tier 4, and you're just getting thrown in against the tier 5s and the tier 6s, and it's like, that's not going to be a particularly fun experience. That's just, there are a lot of these low tier machines that could be really good with the right matchmaking, but because they get absolutely balked in terms of meeting machines that they can't possibly hurt 2 tiers higher than them, people just rush through them to get to those higher tiers, because that's where the game starts to, you know, air quotes, get fun. And it's kind of, there's all these tanks at the, you know, tier 5 and lower that I feel just don't get a fair shake because they don't get good matchmaking. And obviously, you know, the AMX 40, prime example of this. But there are plenty more. I could sit here all day listing tanks. And I've had to think about how it could work. Maybe for tier 4 and less, tier 4 and lower, maybe you only have +1 matchmaking, but that then maybe screws people who get to tier 5, because suddenly you get that jump to +2 matchmaking. But I don't know, maybe there's ways around that. Maybe you could do it so that you kind of have like tier 4 and 5 is kind of transitionary. So when you get to tier 4, you start seeing a lot more tier 5s, but you can't see tier 6. And then when you're tier 5, you will still see, you know, up to tier 7, but maybe you'll see tier 4s a bit more often as well as a kind of compensation. So I don't know, I think there's ways to make it work. But the current state of things is, yeah, I think there are a lot of lower tier gems that just get missed because the current state of the matchmaking is just incredibly unkind to them. And there are a couple that you would maybe keep the regular matchmaking because otherwise it would be a bit too troll. Like, for instance, the FCM 36 back 40. Some of the lower tier, yeah, some of the tier 3 tank destroyers maybe, or just things like the Panzer 1C. If that only ever saw tier 4 matchmaking, that might be a bit too troll. I don't know. It needs to. It needs some thought. I'm not sure you can make it a universal thing, but there are already some lower tiers, like the B1, for instance, already gets limited matchmaking. That only ever sees tier 5s. So I think more tier 3s and tier 4s should be like that. In fact, I think the majority should be like that, and that would be a big thing. The other thing I would like to see World of Tanks do, which is kind of a, not really a flaw, but it's more of a bugbear, and I know it's more server based as well, is they are very, very poor at like on YouTube or on other forums. There's whole communities around World of Tanks, and a lot of people don't use forums. A lot of people don't go on the official forums or Reddit or What Labs or any of these kind of extra information sites, and there's a lot of stuff there, but it's just it doesn't get the exposure by wargaming. And there's a big difference between something being, I mean, not everyone is even going to visit the website, but the thing is, when you load up the launcher, you see the latest news items, and you could expose a lot more stuff within the community by actually using that more. And they have made fitful attempts at doing community spotlights. They've also been doing clan spotlights, which is quite nice. The first one was actually on SGTA, and this is all on the EU forum I'm talking about, by the way. It might be different on other forums, I don't know. But on SGTA, which was followed up by that hive of scum and villainy, We Just Dinged Them, and then the most recent one has been Rise. But if you look back through the news archives, the last time they did a community spotlight was in January. We're now in August. In fact, we're at the end of August as I'm recording this. It is end of July, rather, nearly the beginning of August. I had to look at my calendar there. Yeah, this is slightly ridiculous. The fact that there hasn't been one since January. It's been 7 months. Is there a reason for that? I don't know. Is the community team on EU so completely undermanned that they can't manage a community spotlight every other month highlighting stuff that's going on in the forums or other websites or streamers or YouTubers? I don't know. It's just like there's a whole wealth out of content out there that's created by the community that wargaming is just could be bringing attention to, and they're not. And I think that's kind of sad. I don't know why that's the case, but it is the case. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the actual in-game experience of World of Tanks. That's more of a peripheral thing, but still, it does bug me. I think that's the thing they could definitely improve on. Goff 0103, or possibly Joff, I'm not sure. I'm going to guess Goff. He asks, do I think War Thunder made the right decision by banning mods in ground forces? You can, yeah, I mean, I'm in two minds on this. It kind of makes their job easier, and I can see kind of why they would make that decision, but on the other hand, the mods and the modding community for World of Tanks has really made World of Tanks a better game, and it's actually influenced the development of World of Tanks. Simple things like the countdown timer, and we've also, there was a thing recently in FTR about the XVM developers had kind of, was it the phrase used, buried the hatchet with the the RU developer team or something like that, and they were starting to work a bit more closely together or something. So it's things like, I don't know, that side of things is missing that could be there in War Thunder. So it kind of levels the playing field. But for the things like World of Tanks, I mean, if you're playing in the WGL or whatever, if you're doing things competitively in World of Tanks anyway, you would be deliberately giving yourself the vanilla experience largely, because of course no mods are allowed in the tournaments, so it's not like for those people for whom it matters that they wouldn't be doing that anyway. It's just for the rest of us, it's quite nice that there's that interplay. But of course, wargaming being wargaming, it has taken quite a while for a lot of these to filter through, because they themselves have it's always been an indifferent at best attitude to the modding community, so it's kind of like just about tolerated. But even then you get things like the EU server modding policy is worded such that it effectively makes all mods illegal, which is like, yeah, okay, that's helpful, sure. But yeah, no, I think War Thunder's missing out something, but like I said, I can kind of see why they've done it. HSM English asks, am I into... Oh, well, actually, I should actually read out what he says, because it makes more sense than what I was trying to say. Seeing as you're into classical movies / TV series, what current TV series are you following, if any? I kind of follow odd bits and pieces on the iPlayer, and sometimes on the other online on-demand services. I don't have any paid ones. I just use the free ones that the UK broadcasters provide. But there's not really anything at the moment. There's like odd kind of comedy series that I follow. I'll occasionally go on and maybe watch a documentary or something. Horizon has gotten better in recent years. It used to be Horizon. Horizon was really, really good in when I was growing up. We had Horizon on BBC, and then you had Equinox on Channel 4, and there was some fantastic science and documentary programming. And then it all, Equinox went away, and Horizon got progressively dumbed down to the point where it was just like, I don't even know what I'm watching right now. But it's picked up again in recent years, and there's been some interesting things. But I probably listen to radio programs and podcasts on a more regular basis than I do watch TV shows. However, I do occasionally borrow DVDs and things like that off people as well. So I think I watched recently was the first series of The Bridge, which was actually quite good. Although the ending was slightly not what I thought it would be. Something else I've watched recently, I think we had a series of Rev this year, which I quite enjoyed, which I think was the final series of Rev. There was W1A, was it that? The follow-up to the comedy series 2012. And again, I quite enjoyed that. Hugh Bonneville is always quite good. I'm trying to think what other series I've watched this year. I'm way behind with Game of Thrones. I borrowed the first series off somebody, and I have not actually seen anything beyond that. But of course, I've read the books up until... I don't think I've read the most recent one. I keep meaning to go back and reread those, but we're going to come to a books question later, by the way, so it might come up. But yeah, I tend to... There's various podcasts that I listen to way more regularly. Like the BBC's In Our Time is one of my favourites. I listen to that pretty much whenever it's on. There's another Radio 4 programme called More or Less. I really like NPR's Planet Money podcast. I'm trying to think what else. There's various comedy shows. On the iPlayer, the radio side of the iPlayer, they have a whole bunch of classic comedy shows that I listen to quite often. I think we covered radio shows at some point, comedy radio, in the last one, didn't I? So yeah, I listen to way more radio stuff, I would say. But on the Bugle, that's worth mentioning as well. Did I mention the Bugle last time? Go listen to the Bugle, you guys. It's really funny. It's John Oliver, yes, that John Oliver, and Andy Zaltzman, and they do funny things, and generally just spew satire all over the place. So, if you have an allergy to satire, be warned. Also, go and listen to the old ones. Some of the old ones have... he's stopped doing it so much these days because I think John Oliver was getting genuinely fed up, but Andy Zaltzman's pun runs some of them are absolutely legendary. You can find some on YouTube, actually. Go and look up the one for fish. And that'll probably link you to some others as well. But it's... You get to the kind of the last couple of ones he did, and you can almost like hear John Oliver's pain, and it's hilarious. But I guess, I don't know, maybe they felt it was getting a bit much, so he does occasionally indulge in a bit of punnery now and then, but it's been a while since he's done a full-blown pun run, and I kind of miss that. It'd be nice every once in a while. And this is actually another question from HSM. I don't normally do two, but this is actually one that there's an interesting answer to. Am I the biggest celebrity in the Isle of Harris? Well, for one thing, I'm not in Harris, but actually, John Maher lives in Harris, who, if you don't know, was the drummer from the Buzzcocks. So, yeah, he actually lives down there, he takes photographs, and he tunes up, is it racing? There's some particular kind of racing cars that he actually tunes up. I can't even remember. But he's actually had exhibitions of both his photography and his car stuff up in the Arts Centre in Atlanta, and he's really good. So yeah, he's probably the biggest celebrity, I'd say. But there might be one or two other people that you may have heard of that live here. Johnny McRitchie asks, he was actually born in Scotland. Well, that's not really a question, but he says he's visited Stornoway a few times, he knows how remote it is, so how can our ping be fine? I've had problems, man. Just let me tell you, I've had problems. The best you can get up here is ADSL, but that's good enough for playing games. It just really sucks for doing, video uploads and that kind of thing, because the upload speeds are pretty terrible. But largely the ping is decent. On a good day it's kind of 40 to 50 milliseconds, sometimes it's up to 70. If I'm having internet problems, which I've had in the past, it peaks over 100 to 200 to 500 to over 1,000 to over 9,000. It's over 9,000, you guys. It can be not great, but it's not bad considering where we live. We're supposed to be getting fibre at some point in the next couple of years. I really hope it's sooner rather than later. It's actually this year they're supposed to have started the fibre, the undersea laying, the cable laying, but I don't know, I've not seen any news about that. But this would be the time of year that they'd be doing it. I doubt they'd be going across the Minch in the winter weather with a cable laying ship. That wouldn't seem like a good plan to me. But I don't know. We'll see how it works out.